Lewis Hamilton is a Ferrari race winner. Did you hear me? Did you hear what I just said? I didn't hear what I just said. Get out of here. I don't think Carlos Sainz is going to stay at Williams for much longer. They barely skated over the fact that George Russell got that P2. Nico Rosberg had to interview his old teammate Lewis Hamilton. Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we are going to be debriefing the 2026 Spanish Grand Prix. I'm super excited because, guys, Lewis Hamilton just won in a Ferrari. This is like Christmas. I don't know how to put this in a layman's terms. It's a huge win. I think the whole sporting world in general, because everybody was doubting Lewis Hamilton. Everybody was saying all these horrible things. Lando Norris actually picked up on this in the press conference yesterday, and he said that so many people were saying so many bad things about Lewis Hamilton. Is he washed? He should retire. He's never gonna accomplish anything great again.
He's obviously had a lot of people talk badly about him, and he's got a lot of crap online from a lot of people. So it's nice that he can stick the middle finger up to all of them.
There were literally retirement allegations or rumors a week or 2 weeks ago that he had to dispel. And look now, we are having Prime Lewis come back to us, which is crazy. But let's get back right into whatever happened this week. VCarb, once again, delivering an incredible livery. I promise you guys, whenever VCarb decides that they want to do a livery, they make sure that they're doing something that is imaginative. Like, this livery is beautiful. Like, look at it. It's stunning. It's beautiful. VCarb can miss in a lot of different things, but I promise you guys, when it comes to livery, number one team in my opinion. First things first, everybody thought that Monaco was so good last week, until we realized that it continued with us onto this week. Pierre Gasly got his podium back. He's got a P3. Pierre celebrated this with his team. They're super happy. I mean, I'm really proud of Alpine. They really stood up and said, hey, we're not letting our driver go, which is a lot to say from other teams such as Mercedes, who didn't even say anything about their drivers' penalties. But we have seen some discourse over that, people saying that they think that George Russell would have gotten a podium, which is true, because some of those penalties, you could have disputed them. And also, I feel like the FIA opening up room for the discussion of those penalties to take place kind of made it like more complicated for everyone else, because now it's like Oscar, George, like all these different people with penalties. Now everybody wants to review their own decisions, so that's still going to be happening, but we're going to see what result comes from there. Barcelona Grand Prix started off pretty basic, pretty boring. Now, as qualifying came about, we had the usual suspects, except, guys, Charles Leclerc decided to spin out and get into the gravel for some reason and crash out, and that also put a huge red asterisk next to Lando Norris's fast lap. I genuinely think the lap that Lando Norris was doing, the first lap that he did when Charles just spun out and then we had a safety car, that lap was going to be pretty good, but it was scrapped because of the yellow flag. And then we had George coming back finally to get a pole. We had Lewis, and then he managed to come out and get a P2 and sandwich himself between the two Mercedes drivers, with Kimi Antonelli in P3 and then Lando Norris in P4. And then we had Max Verstappen, Oscar Piastri. I feel like the McLarens really disappointed us on pace because we were expecting so much from them this weekend, but clearly, you know, Barcelona Grand Prix started out very normally. It was very basic in my opinion. Started off slow, nothing really exciting happened in the first turn or in the second turn, whatever. It was more the type of race where you have to be really good at your strategy and your tire management. So those are the most important things that people were looking out for. So the race started out as normal, everybody's going about their day, and then all of a sudden people start doing these tricks. People are pitting, change their tires, which is affecting everyone's different strategies, right? So Mercedes' strategy was based upon McLaren. For some reason, it was based upon Lando Norris. So for majority of the race, they were worried that Lando Norris was going to take up Kimi's place. Lewis Hamilton and Ferrari, this is the first time ever Ferrari's done such an incredible job in terms of strategy. I've never seen this happen before in my life. Ferrari's strategy today was on point, especially when it came to Lewis's car. I think even with Charles, but Charles understood that he wasn't the fastest car between the two of them, so he had to kind of play the team game to help Lewis and to get those points. Unlucky for him, by the time that race ended, he was DNF, but it's okay. Anyways, so Hulkenberg had the most unlucky race of the season because a stone literally hit the emergency kill switch in his car and it switched off. Like what, you know? It was one of those things that just happens again, like wow, there's probably a curse. And speaking of curses, Kimi Antonelli's towel incident with Kim Kardashian took Kimi's towel last week, and then this week she sent it back to him. She said, hey, I didn't know I did that was wrong, or maybe I knew that was wrong, but here's your towel back, Kimi. Wink wink. And everybody now thinks that she's Kimi's curse because, you know, she wants her man to win. And luckily for Kim, that's exactly what happened. Lewis Hamilton pitted and there was a VSC from Fernando Alonso, and then when Lewis came out of of the pits, he was ahead of the Mercedes with stonking pace. He had so much pace on that car. And then we had this weird battle between the two Mercedes drivers in P2 and P3. And McLaren was snitching on Kimi because they were saying, hey, this kid keeps rocking out of the corners in the race, so please watch out for him. So McLaren was basically hoping for a 5-second penalty for Kimi so that Lando Norris could take P3. But luckily for them, they didn't know that Kim Kardashian was already ahead of everyone, and the car just, the Mercedes power unit or whatever, just, you know, DNF'd him. But on top of that, he already had a damage on his front wing. I don't know where he got the damage from. I literally tried to rewatch to see where. I don't know if it was when he was, you know, with George. George Russell gets his P2. Lando Norris, look at him, just benefiting off of everybody's bad luck, getting into P3. I will say though that McLaren needs to do better with the car, because you can see that when Lando Norris, after he's had countless DNFs this season, when he does compete, he had that sprint win in Miami. This is the second podium of the season. Always finishes in quite a decent position when he has the pace. And I feel like McLaren is really making it hard for him to defend the championship title. But luckily for him, if you look at his interviews, he just looks like he's having the time of his life. Feels like he's not affected by what is happening. It feels like he's not as upset, you know, everything happening. He's just chilling. I'm not gonna lie, Lando Norris' season has been very refreshing. He's been very chilled. Alpine double points. Alpine double points. Let's not forget that. Alpine just did a double points. So Lewis Hamilton wins the race in the Barcelona-Catalunya Grand Prix 2026, which is Carlos Sainz's home race, and a bit like adding salt onto a wound, realizing that Lewis Hamilton has taken away the record of Carlos Sainz being the last Ferrari race winner, and he did it at Carlos Sainz's home Grand Prix. Jeez. What a disappointing thing. But it is a big win for Lewis Hamilton. I feel like he really deserves the win. He's been going through so much emotionally and online, because he's a 7-time world champion, and everyone's been treating him like, you know, he should retire. He's an old man on the grid. But yeah, Carlos Sainz is no longer the last Ferrari race winner. I feel bad for Carlos, because I watched his interview after the race, when the interviewer asked him about how he feels about his performance at Williams. And I take from that I don't think Carlos Sainz is going to stay at Williams for much longer. And I also don't think Alex Albon is going to stay at Williams for much longer. I think that if by the end of this year they're not competing for a P3, Carlos is out. He's leaving. I don't know where he's gonna go, but he will take the next best thing. I feel like I would understand that, because you can't make promises, James Vowles, as a team, and it's very demotivating to stick your neck up for someone and then things just never work out. Even for Alex, it's very unfair because he's been there for so long. So I promise you, my prediction is that if Williams doesn't get it together, they're gonna lose both their drivers. I don't know where those drivers are gonna go, but I'm telling you that some of these teams on the grid are stalking. They're watching. So I don't think Carlos Sainz is going to be a Williams for much longer. This is our first all British podium since 1968, which is crazy. Okay, but it was nice that we got to hear the British national anthem for all the drivers. Nico Rosberg had to interview his old teammate Lewis Hamilton, and it was just after he was ignored by Lewis Hamilton on the grid like 30 minutes before the race started. So I don't know how that went over. Overall, guys, the Barcelona Grand Prix was pretty eventful. What an amazing win for Lewis Hamilton. What a big win for Ferrari, finally. Poor Charles, poor Kimi, I guess. I don't know. One thing I do want to add of note is that I don't think that Mercedes is being fair to George Russell. I will continue to say this until it changes. I don't know. But I feel like even after the race ended, if you listen to the radio with Toto Wolff's reaction towards Lewis's win and Kimi's DNF and George's P2, he didn't mention George much. He didn't seem ecstatic. He didn't seem proud. He didn't seem happy about it. He seemed very disappointed, and even in the posts on LinkedIn, on their social media, they barely skated over the fact that George Russell got that P2. So it kind of feels like a snub. It kind of feels like they're not really for him, which I think is a bit unfair, as he is their oldest driver, and it just feels like they just don't appreciate him, you know. And I feel like that's a bit unfair to George, because he's really trying his best. And I saw that especially last week when he literally had to go to the FIA office on his own to dispute his own penalty, you know. And seeing Pierre Gasly's penalty being overturned means that if Mercedes had gone with him, maybe, just maybe, there could have been an overturning or something, you know, a better positioning for him. So I just feel like that was a bit unfair, a bit uncalled for, but we'll see what happens. The next Grand Prix is in Austria. I don't know what my predictions are. Do I think Lewis Hamilton will be fighting for that championship? Yes, he's P2 in the championship. He said he's back, and if he says he's back, who are we to dispute it? So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please let me know what you thought of the Grand Prix, and give me all your predictions for next week in the comment section below. I love you guys. Please subscribe and like this video. Bye.